right. Hey, good morning. Joel here with Be Growth Driven. We are excited about today's episode because it's an important one. It's frankly the difference between getting where you want to go and not getting there. It's all about staying committed. And I'm excited because this is an important topic, I think, for a lot of folks, especially someone that's starting a brand new business, somebody that's in a business right now, because let's just be real, over the last year, a lot of hurdles have been thrown at businesses, and it's that commitment, that willingness to stay committed and hang in there despite all obstacles and see your way through it. It's going to be really the ones that rise to the top. So I'm excited to actually have a special guest with us today, Justin Bondietti. He's a Grant Cardone licensee. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring him here on the stage. Justin, how are you doing this morning, man?
Hey, Joel, good morning. I am doing absolutely phenomenal. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, man. I'm doing
good. Man, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk about this topic. Staying committed, getting committed, staying committed, two different things, and I'm super passionate about both.
Wonderful. Well, hey, before we get into that whole area, I always like to kind of take a few minutes and let's learn about who's Justin Bondietti. Give us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you're at, who you are, those types of things.
Absolutely, sure. So I'm a Marine. I'm a retired Marine, and I transitioned out of the Marine Corps into the civilian world in 2015, and that wasn't very easy, as most veterans know. Bounced around from job to job. You do the usual thing. I had a degree, had a successful career as a Marine. The logical thing is you go get a job, and you provide for your family. And for most folks, that works out. For me, that wasn't working out so well. So what I ended up doing, rather than just getting a 9-to-5 job where you show up and they pay you for your time, I ended up getting into sales. And that was not where I saw my future, but that's what happened. And it actually turned out to be one of the most amazing things I've done.
Was the transition a smoother transition from being a Marine to sales? Or some of the disciplines stuff that just carried over?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was really I did sales. I sold mattresses, appliances, insurance. I did a lot of things, and I found Grant Cardone. And first course I took with him was Master the Cold Call. And because at the time I was making calls, and I was thinking there's got to be a way, there's got to be a systematic process. And so when I went through his course, and I had it for a full year, so I was able to take my time, was able to go through it a couple of times and digest the material. I realized there was a system to this, and that's when it really clicked for me as far as what I'd experienced, my experience in the Marine Corps, and applying it to the sales profession, and how the discipline, the systematic application of skills, all of that comes into play. And it really is just getting better at the skills and just continually being consistent with those actions, which absolutely. I can identify with that from the Marine Corps.
Right. So, there's some people when they learn this thing called sales, right?
Sales, yeah.
This thing called sales, and because they always, a lot of times when people think of sales, they think of the used, no offense to the used car sales guys. If you're listening to this, you're different than the rest. We're not talking about you. If you're listening to this, it's obviously that you're a different character. But this thing called sales, a lot of people have this negative connotation about it, right? And when they hear that you're learning sales, a lot of times I've had people say, well, you're just learning to manipulate people. I mean, what's your assessment? What is sales to you?
Oh my goodness. We could spend a whole week on this right here.
Right.
But really, I mean, the best way I've heard it is from Grant Cardone when he talks about what it is to close a customer, right? To close a deal, to close a client, a contract, however you want to put it. But when you actually do the exchange of money for value, you're providing a service. And that was mind blowing for me in the aspect of, I'm not trying to convince somebody or trick somebody or get somebody to buy my stuff. What I'm trying to do is help them the best that I can. And I should never be trying to close somebody if I don't believe this is the right decision, this is the right call, this is the right product, right service, I'm the right person to help solve their problem. So for me, sales is really about providing a service to somebody and helping them solve a problem in their life.
And I like that point that you brought out, because you got to solve a problem. I mean, and some people, I've been told one definition of sales, and I really like it. It's motivating someone to take action that's in their own best interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, how many times do you sit there and you go, yeah, I gotta figure that out, right? Or, oh, I gotta think about this, or I know it's the right call, but I don't know if I want to spend the money, right? You ponder that and you think about it. And again, like Grant says, adding time to the decision doesn't make it easier or better. Like, it's not going to change the facts around it, right?
Right. So it's like having a broken arm and delaying going to the doctor. You wouldn't delay going to the doctor. It's just not common sense, right?
Yeah.
So, the quicker you lean on it. But I think some people too, they look at this thing called sales and they're like, well, if you're learning how to do professional sales, it's just, you're pushing people. No, and I don't think, I would disagree with that. I think there are people that are pushing people, and they're called con artists. We're talking about something completely different and unrelated.
Yeah, and a lot of times, even salespeople that are not trying to do that sometimes get caught up in doing that by pushing their product. They're pushing a specific product or service, right? Because of whatever reason. There's a ton of reasons out there. So one of the ways that Grant teaches us is to use fact finding to discover the problem, discover how you can help them, rather than trying to right off the bat say, buy this thing.
Right.
Trying to uncover what it is that we can help. And if we can't help them, then we let them know and we move on. We don't sit there and try to make something happen.
Right. One of the things I love, because we're both through Cardone U, we both do, we're both have been, around, you could say, Grant Cardone and that ecosystem, that network, that family for a long time. And one of the things I really like is sometimes you got to realize as a sales professional that you maybe have that client on the wrong product. Mm-hmm. And so where you're talking about there too is some salespeople will only sell that one product. And they don't realize they need to change up the product because the product isn't right. And go ahead.
I'll say, yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I always listen for. I do role playing with folks like one-on-one. I help them with their scripts, objections, things like that. And one thing I always listen for is what Grant calls offering an alternative, like selection via alternative. So you're going to offer them what they want, what they're asking for, but would you also consider one level up, a model up, or a different thing that's kind of related? Or would you consider one that's down, like a downgrade? And if they're like, oh, I might look at that, well, then they might be on the wrong product or service, right?
Right.
So they might not know about all that you do. And that's something else I see is folks out there, especially business owners, right? Like yourself, you do a ton of great things, but you can't pitch them all at once.
Right.
So how do you figure out how to pitch that and uncover what would best help that customer?
And that sometimes can be, frankly, a challenge, because like what you're talking about is like you could have a whole array of products, and I think that's where and we're kind of dipping into the sales thing of before we dip into commitment here. Sure. I love it, like you said. Maybe we just need to have a whole nother thing just on sales, but you got to get into what's going to be the right solution for that client, and be able to navigate that. And it's that the steps of the sale you can't violate, because some people go right into, I want to demo what I got. I'm so excited about what I got. I want to demo it. Yeah. And they don't do the fact finding ahead of time. And so, like one of the things that we started in our office recently is we got those steps of the sale. And at any given time, one of us should be able to walk around and say, what step?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you bring that up, because that's what I'm referring to when I say it clicked for me in terms of this being systematic. And for example, I did artillery in the Marine Corps. And so there's a very systematic way that we account for all the variables, and we try to, shoot artillery, right? And hit the right target and that sort of thing. So we have to be very systematic and know what we're doing. With sales and the steps, the road to the sales, what he calls it, and all the steps that are there, you don't want to skip them, because you might miss something, as well as it gives you an opportunity to build your personal value and your company's value in the mind of the customer.
100%.
Yeah. And on top of that, if you're a manager, if we got any business owners or managers out there watching this, if you're a manager and you don't have these steps lined out and you can't do like Joel was just saying and go say, hey, what step are we on with this customer? Or what happened in this step? It'd be very difficult to pinpoint what you need to train on, what you need to rehearse, what you need to go back and correct with that salesperson. So really the steps of the sales, not only for the customer, but it's for the managers as well.
100%. I love it. Because if you're not breaking those things down, you get lost in the sequence. And so I think some people overthink that sequence too a little bit. It's real, got to ask the questions. And one of the things that, and we've talked about this here too, is you got to ask the hard questions too.
That's right.
Because at one of the workshops I was recently at down at Grant Cardone's office, we had a very I won't mention him here right now. Great guy though. And he very successful company, $50 million plus company. And he was simply asked, he says, hey, if somebody doesn't ask you the hard questions, what do you think about that person? And he goes, when he thought about it, he goes, I have less respect for them. They're wasting my time.
They're just trying to take an order.
Yeah. And they won't get the order, so sales, so you went from Marine sales, and it was the rhythm in those things, like you said, the very systematic things that just clicked. Tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a Grant Cardone licensee.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people ask me if this is true, and it absolutely is. There was a time when I decided to change our situation. There was a time where I was on my way to work, stopped at the gas station to, I didn't have lunch or anything like that. We weren't making too much money. And I was, get a drink, get a granola bar, or something to take with me to work for the day. And found out my account was overdrawn. And so I reached in my pocket and had $1 left. And I ended up walking outside, looking at the dollar, trying to figure out how I was going to feed my family, because I knew we still had to make it a few days before we got paid, and my kids were eating saltine crackers. So it was a challenge, right? So we changed our situation, and we made a plan, and we got up and left and went to family first, and then moved on from there to Oklahoma, where I got into sales. And then I went to GrowthCon. That was my first GrowthCon 2 in Las Vegas, 2017. And spent about what I could on it. And I was in the bleachers, like in the far corner of, there's thousands and thousands of people at GrowthCon, and I was there. And I realized while I was there the very first day, I got so mad at myself and realized how underperforming I was and how I could do so much more. And here I am sitting so far away, I could barely see the stage. Well, I could see the stage, but I could barely see the people on the stage and all that sort of thing. I mean, it was great. I had great people around me. It was a fun time, all that good stuff, met some cool people. But really what I got from it was a kick in the pants. And right after that, I got real serious. And I started training every day in Cardone University. I walked into a motorsports place and never rode a motorcycle in my life. Within 3 months, I was maxing out gross profit on every unit I sold. I was
nice. Yeah. Very nice. So now, where were you sitting there at this GrowthCon? Were you sitting in the back?
I was so far away. Who knows? I mean, I literally got probably one of the cheapest tickets there, because I also had to pay for a place to stay and travel and all that stuff. Right. You got to account for all those things. But the stage was in front of me to my right. So I was sitting kind of like this the whole time trying to watch. So a lot of times we were standing up and everybody's excited, which is great.
Right. I was to your right then in the same same area of the event. Okay. So we were talking about that a little bit before this, but see, and now, I mean, look at it's always amazes me, kind of like you walked away from that with this new resolve.
That's right. I did.
We'll call commitment, right?
I've been committed every day since, I tell you what.
Right. And that's kind of where the whole topic of this discussion, really connects and stems to, is like staying committed.
Yeah.
because some people, what have you observed on the commitment level of people?
People are it's super easy for folks to get motivated and get committed. It seems like it's a bit more challenging with any of us, with me especially, to stay committed every day. I wear a suit and tie every day, even if I'm in my home office. If I'm working, I wear my suit and tie, and that's a commitment I made to myself because Grant says, "Hey, you got to be the best dressed."
Yeah, I love it.
Ain't nobody walking in my office here, but I do jump on Zoom calls every now and then, and this is for me to stay committed. It reminds me every day.
I love it. I love it. But what do you think is one of the causes why people lose their commitment?
They get burned out because of here. This is the best way I can explain it. A lot of times at night, folks go to bed thinking about what they didn't do. They think about the challenges they had or something somebody said, things they missed, instead of going to bed thinking about, man, I got another day tomorrow. I got another opportunity tomorrow. This is what I did do right today. This is what did happen that was good today. So many people get caught up because I think it's easier for folks to think on the negative than it is the positive. But they get caught up on those things that kind of just eat away at you. And over time, you start being like, oh, I don't want to experience that anymore. But they forget about celebrating those small wins. For example, if you're making phone calls, you're on the phone all the time. A lot of times companies, they measure, hey, how many calls did you make today? I encourage folks to measure what objections they got. What objections did you get today? So you didn't make any sales, all that sort of thing. What objections did you get? Write them down, because that's a win. Whether you realize it or not, that's a win. And then tomorrow you can drill, train, practice, rehearse how to overcome that objection and get past it and really help that customer.
Right. I think one of the things too, kind of like focusing on your successes, and that's one of the things I like about, because I love using the 10X goal book, right? Is because it makes you take that time to write out and say, hey, where were things successful today? What were your wins today?
Yeah.
And one of the things that's if anybody ever has a chance to go to Grant Cardone's to what's called an HQ day, one of the things I love is they start off their day with their wins and they get the excitement going. They look at where they've been successful. And by looking at where you've been successful, you automatically start fixing even more and more of where you've been unsuccessful.
Absolutely. And as a business owner yourself, I've been in lots of management positions, right? And I've had Marines under me and things like that. I've been in management positions in the civilian world. You can't control what information they're putting in their head when they're not at work, or even if they're at work. You can't control what's happening in their personal life outside of work and things like that. So when they come to work in the morning, you can't assume that they're coming to work ready to go. So as a manager or business owner, it's on you to kind of take responsibility and kind of shape the attitude for the day by saying, okay, regardless of what's happening out there, let's focus. Let's get excited about what we're doing here right now today.
Right. How do you stay committed? What's your routine? Was there a routine that you found that works best for you?
Oh, number one, show up every day. Show up. There have been days where I didn't want to show up. There's been days that I haven't shown up, because for what I am doing as a licensee, there is nobody telling me every day. I don't have a manager. I don't have somebody, waiting on me unless it's a client or a customer or something like that. It's on me to make it happen every single day, to figure out, how am I going to get known today?
Right.
How am I going to find somebody that I can help today? And so really the commitment for me comes in knowing, if I don't do it, it won't happen.
Right. Well, do you think is that where business owners, what you've seen working with business owners, is that where the early, where they're just starting out, is that where like a big pain point is? Are they still having that 9-to-5 mentality?
Honestly, it's kind of interesting you bring this up, because lately I've talked to several business owners, and it seems like the issue is actually when they start getting going. Their business is starting to get traction. It's how do you grow from being just you and maybe one or two other people to actually having somebody that does sales for you or does outreach, and you start growing. Like how does the business owner regain time to focus on the direction of the business rather than what's happening today?
Yeah, I love it. Well, and then that's Brandon Dawson talks about that, like how to scale out, right? How to go. You need to take like some of the things you're not good at that you're doing anyway, and figure out somebody that can take care of those. And then it's multiples by 3, right? Where you start layering underneath the people that can actually scale that, replicate that.
Yeah. And like he says as well, you got to have that process written down. Right. So I'm amazed at how many folks, they might know about it, but they don't actually do it, where they write down what they're saying, what their prospecting plan is, how are they going to get known, what their follow-up plan is, like have these written down to where they can hand them to somebody and say, hey, this is what I want you to do.
Right.
And Brandon talks about that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
So the Committed Salesman, that's your company name.
Correct.
Right.
That's right.
Tell us, what has been your journey as a Grant Cardone licensee? Where have you seen, where have been the challenges? How did you overcome those? Just as a business owner, I guess, really is what that comes down to.
No, absolutely. So I've known since 2019. I saw this at the end of 2019 at the licensee program, and I was like, someday, that's where I'm going. I knew it. I want to be the licensee. This is what I want to do. I love doing this. And I love celebrating wins with folks. I love when people share their wins with me. It's a great feeling, right?
Yeah, no, it's exhilarating.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so in May, an opportunity came up to where I could become a licensee, and I jumped on it. I mean, I didn't take more than, I don't know, an hour. I didn't add time to the decision, right? It was something I'd already been thinking about it for months. I knew it's something I wanted to do, and it was an opportunity that I could jump on. And so I did. Now, the challenge that came about with it is because you're like an independent business owner as a licensee, I didn't really know what to do with it, right? Because I didn't have this team of people to just plug in. So the challenge became, okay, how do I grow this thing, just me to something bigger than me?
Right.
And so Grant's folks there, the licensee team, the licensee group, they have a Facebook group. The people that are licensees are awesome. We talk all the time. And even though we're all independent, and in a way you could say we're competitors, we collaborate a lot and share ideas, and it's been super supportive.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So what would you say if someone was considered becoming a licensee, what would be your recommendation?
Talk to a current licensee first. Okay. Talk to somebody that's been there where you want to go. But here's the thing though, is the licensee program, you're licensed to use Grant's material.
Right.
So you can do it so many ways we probably couldn't even list them all because we don't know them all, right? Everybody comes up with their own way of doing it sometimes. Like Grant they have these methods that you can use. You can do exactly what he's doing, but you can also bolt it onto like your own products and services, your own business you already have. So really talking to a fellow licensee, they might not be doing what you're trying to do, but you can still connect some of the ideas and the ways they're doing business and set you up for success.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So for the business owner out there, that let's look back at, this last crazy year and a quarter.
Yeah.
about a year that we've all experienced. We've all been participants as far as in the environment of the world, of what's going on. And you have business owners out there that last year, some of them, there was a lot of factors that affected their, the absolute just shut down for them, which, we would have to agree was items out of their control. The businesses that you saw pivot from that, what were the biggest takeaways that you could say what led to their success?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, you said something there about being out of your control, and we all agree with that. but I do got to touch on the thing that Grant always says that people kind of confuse is accept responsibility for everything.
Right.
So,
that's a hard one for people to grab.
Yes, it is.
Because they're like, it wasn't my fault. I had nothing to do with it.
And what what sometimes folks confuse with that on that is we're not like saying it's your fault. Although Grant does say, hey, if you look at it as being your fault, what could you have done to prepare for it so it doesn't happen again, right? What could you do now? How can you respond to the situation, respond to the issue, right? Rather than just sitting there and throwing your hands up saying, oh, it's not my fault, I can't do anything. What if you could? If you could, what would that look like? And that's really what Grant's trying to get people to think is, if you could have done something about this, what would it have been? Right. It goes back to how we were talking a few minutes ago about celebrating the wins and not focusing on the negativity. Is don't focus on what you can't do. Start thinking about, okay, I'm not sure what I can do, so let me start looking at this and thinking about it.
Well, and I think you bring up an important thing is you got to start thinking about it. And the only way, you think of like how our minds think. Our minds, I always tell people, it's like our minds love to solve problems. So when we don't take responsibility for it, we're not giving it a new problem to solve. And so we start diving. If we start diving down that, we start saying, we start actually asking ourselves, well, how would have I prevented this? Not asking that question, but actually, I think how Grant tells it, you got to take full responsibility. You own that one.
You got it. Otherwise, you're gonna drown, right?
Well, there's a difference between, I think, the level of commitment, to bring in our theme here, the level of commitment of saying, hey, how would have I done that differently? Versus, man, that's my fault. I need to change that. There's two different thought processes there.
There is. You're absolutely right on that. So what would cause you to be, so Grant says salesperson becomes urgent when their survival is threatened.
Right.
So a person that's making phone calls every day and they're getting complacent and making calls, all of a sudden they're like, oh shoot, if I don't hit my quota, I'm done. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with a business. You could say, I need to start thinking about this. I need to start planning for it. But when it becomes, crap, this is my fault.
Right.
My fault. I didn't plan for this. I didn't take care of this. This is the result. I have to fix this now. All of a sudden, it's an urgent issue. It's not hey, let's, Grant and Brandon have an awesome program about preparing for emergency situations, but that falls in the, hey, I need to think about it category.
Right.
The other one is, hey, I got to fix this like this month. Right. So.
Right. Well, I always think of it too. In my mind, we're out here in Nebraska, and so we got these vast stretches of plains. I grew up out in the western part of the state where it's country, and there's not a house but every couple miles. Right. Sometimes when you're going through, and I always thought about it as growing up, like if you were in the middle of the winter, storms hit and car breaks down. And you only got 30 minutes of gas left, but the temperature is going to go to the degree that you can't survive another hour after that. But yet you see a glimmering light in the distance, you're going to make it there.
You're going to figure it out.
You're going to muster up the courage, and you're going to lean in, and you're going to, especially if you had family with you. I'm a father. I got a couple kids. If I had them, my wife, depending upon me, and I think some people are resistant to take it to that mental decision point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the same thing?
Yeah. It's the dependency thing, right?
Right.
So so I have another real life scenario example of somebody that I know that I've talked with that was in a situation where he wanted to become a great salesperson. And he wanted to be really good at this, and he wanted to make this his career.
Right.
And in the environment that he was operating in, he kept changing jobs from dealership to dealership, job to job, things like that. And then he realized, hey, I need to get around people. I need to change my environment and make my environment conducive to where I want to go.
Right.
And it was super scary to do that because it meant leaving everything that this person knew. and going into a situation that he'd never done before, didn't know anybody there, never been there before, doing something that he wasn't sure he could even do. And I'm happy to report that, he messaged me recently and said that he's going to be promoted to manager this month. So
nice.
It's amazing. It's amazing when you can confront the fear and have the courage to step forward.
Right. So, and it's, you start seeing, I think when you lean into those things, you start seeing, and this is what's beautiful and frankly exciting. It's the exhilarating part of the commission you get from commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Is you start seeing these goals pop. You're like, man, a year ago, I would have never dreamed that was for me.
Oh, man, you're touching on a great point. It's especially, I was just talking with my wife this past weekend of some, I have probably 3 or 4 opportunities that have popped up recently for me personally that I wasn't saying, I wasn't sitting before that going, okay, if I do A, then I do B, then the result's going to be these opportunities. What happened was I stayed committed. I showed up every day and I kept doing the actions that, Grant teaches in Cardone University, and just connecting with folks like you, Joel. I mean, you've been a great help to me as well. And all of a sudden on this back end, now I have opportunities that are rising that were not on my horizon or in my perspective before. And I think that a lot of folks, they get motivated because of vision. They see something, they want to go get it, but then they're not obtaining it. And then they get kind of demotivated, right? Mm-hmm. So staying committed to me is showing up every day and doing what you know is the right actions every day, even if you don't want to, and then just trying to stay on it so that those opportunities can arise. If you don't show up, the opportunities can't be, they're not going to show up for you.
Yeah.
You got to show up first.
Well, and I always love it, because at one point in time, too, I kind of had that mindset of, well, that's for them. Who am I? I grew up in this, dirt poor town of Western Nebraska. That's not for me. And I was just trying to, I spent more time trying to convince myself of contentment with that. And we all need to find contentment in certain things. But the commitment when we actually lean into a goal, I usually, I've heard it said something along the lines of usually when people give up, they would probably only needed 10% more than they would have been there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That has proven true in my life so many times in the Marine Corps and where I'm at now. If there's been events where I was like, I don't really know if I want to go to this event. And I was like, I'm going to go anyway. I don't even know if I'm going to meet anybody or what's going to happen. And then I walk away with that event and I'm like, telling my wife, man, that was the greatest thing ever. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One of the, and Gina Daner, one of my good friends, a gal I've known for a really long time. She's saying, hey, she says, what I focused on is life is about trajectory. How have you seen that actually play out in your world? How would you say?
100%. Absolutely. So when I was out of the Marine Corps and I was transitioning, I didn't know what to do. I thought I knew what I was doing, right? Getting jobs. You're going this way and you're like, oh, that didn't work. So you go this way. You're like, oh, that didn't work. You're like taking different avenues, different trajectories, right? I'm gonna go this trajectory, and then you change it and you go this way. Well, whenever you're changing your trajectory, you're starting over again.
Yeah.
Like success is at the apex of the trajectory. If my artillery guys are out there or my students, right? So you want to get to that apex where you're at the top and then you're just coasting down, right? So if you keep changing your trajectory, meaning if you are employed at a certain company and you're making phone calls, you're a salesperson, whatever the case is, and something doesn't go your way or whatever the case is, don't be quick to change your trajectory. Maintain that trajectory until you have to change it because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right. Well, and I think that goes with proper goal setting, right? And where I've seen people, sometimes they look at those really massive goals and it causes anxiety for them. And they've been taught that anxiety is unhealthy.
Well, here's the piece that I would say is missing.
Yeah, go for it.
we talk about, I'm sure we have some folks out there that know program management, things like that, right? You can have this overarching like strategy or goal. Then you got to have milestones. You got to have targets that are realistic, right? So your goal, like Grant says, your goal has to be outrageous. Like, in order to get you motivated, just some outrageous goal. He wants to know every single person on this planet. He wants to meet every single person on this planet, right? That's outrageous. Probably not going to happen. But if it was to happen, what would be the milestones? What would be the targets that he would have to hit? And you start backing it up, right? So the same thing is folks focus on these monetary goals when really they should be saying, okay, if I did make $500,000 a month, what would I do with it? What would that do for me?
Right.
And if you have that goal, start identifying your targets that'll be realistic, that you can help attain that goal.
Well, and I've seen people where they do that. They have goals that are unbalanced, and I've thought of like the 10x goals, because what we're talking about is like 10x goals, right?
Yeah.
Like these big, massive ones that they keep you awake at night, not because of anxiety, but because you're like, my goodness, I can actually see it possible now. I guess I didn't set a big enough one. Let's make it bigger. Mm-hmm. However, what people do oftentimes, and tell me if you agree with this, is like they only set goals over here that are massive, and they don't set the other massive goals throughout their whole life in that respect, and they become unbalanced.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. You can be we call them gym rats, right? You can be a gym guy that goes to the gym all the time and huge and all that stuff, and that's great. I used to go to the gym all the time as a Marine and stuff, and I miss it a lot now. I don't go as much, but at a time in my life, at a season in my life, that was my main focus. That was my goal, right? I didn't do away with everything else, but that was my primary. And so now for me, my big picture goal is what I'm doing with my business and the smaller effects that it has on my family. And also too, I am quite honestly, what keeps me going is the success that I've had with folks I've talked with and done business with, that I won't stop doing this because of that, because people have been successful and I've been a part of that. I've been super blessed and super happy.
Right. That's your own little selfish commission, you could say.
It is. I mean, I do it for free sometimes for folks, just because I know what I'm doing and I enjoy doing it. And it really does satisfy a goal for me of just being happy in life. Right.
Wonderful. So now, along those lines, there was something that you were wanting to do. I think Jesse was telling me that you were wanting a contest. Was there a contest?
Yeah, no. So I have a virtual GrowthCon ticket that since I'm going to be on the floor, and they're in Miami. I don't really have a use for this ticket, so I'd like to give it away.
Okay. And so I think that's it right there, right?
Oh yeah, and got some free ebooks there, and also too, I got a 3-day challenge that's coming up. I'm going to do it twice a month. And this is the first one coming up this Wednesday. And I'm going to challenge you. It's not just a coaching call. It's a, hey, we're going to do this right now type call. We're going to get this done. At the end of this 3 days, you're going to have more leads. You're going to have a systematic sales process, and you're going to have an idea of how you can scale what you're doing, how you can scale it bigger.
Right. And that's a loop. I'm gonna put that up again so people can take a screenshot real quick if you're grabbing it. So go here, and it's a video, so it's going away in a second. But go here. Maybe we'll get that as a banner going across the bottom here in just a second. I would imagine there, or in the bottom there. Look at that. See, it's a banner now. It works. We got great people behind the scenes here, that's a huge offer right there. And what you're talking about is, hey, we're not going to add time to the equation. And that goes along with, by the way, everybody, that goes along with commitment. You remove as much time from the equation as possible, because the more time you add, it's usually going to give the opportunity for doubt, for people to say, hey, listen, you don't need that. Don't push yourself too hard. What are you doing with that? Right.
First, number one, I mean, you can't show up if you have people in your atmosphere, in your environment that that don't make you feel good about what you're doing.
Right.
So you got first get your environment right, and then you got to show up. Absolutely.
Right. Well, Gina's actually touching on something here that, in the course of our conversation there, she used to write out a perfect day.
Ooh.
From the time the toes hit the floor to the time my head hits the pillow, I write out every detail. It's set about 5 years in the future.
Wow. That's amazing.
Gina,
I don't think too many people can do that. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, Gina's a driven gal. I love talking with Gina and where she's and watching the journey too, because I've known her for a really long time here, and where she's been very successful in her business is this type of focus herself right there. She was 10x before I think she even heard about Grant Cardone.
Awesome.
Maybe she gave the idea. I don't know, right? But write out every detail, and I like that because what that allows people to do is really kind of like envision themselves there, and that's where when you start thinking about the commitment that that's going to be necessary to achieve that, right? You need to start envisioning that.
And yeah, and with that too, like her perfect day, and you're talking about anxiety earlier. Something that I talk with folks about, and I'm kind of amazed sometimes when I don't hear people talking about this. Is for me, there's two ways to win in this game, in the sales game, in business, right? Is either A, you're taking the actions that are necessary to produce the results, the desired results, and if you're doing those actions, even though you didn't maybe close the deals today, right? You're doing the right actions today.
Right.
That's a win. The other way to win is you get the result. You put those two together and you got a successful business.
Right.
So you should be looking at every day, every week, hey, am I doing the right actions? Everybody likes to focus on results because results are definitely important.
Right.
But stay committed. You got to focus on the actions.
Well, and for some people, they're at different stages of actions. And I think, just as, when we think about this, as far as, where your mindset and focus of commitment is right now, where Gina's is, where Jeff's is, where S. O'Connell's is, where mine is, where, for example, even my wife's now too, and things like that, our different levels of commitment right now has been like an accumulation of over time of reference points, seeing this action and the results from the action, and then drawing upon that, as C-Rock would like to say, as rocket fuel.
C-Rock, yeah, great guy.
And seeing the pitfalls we hit and saying, because have you ever been told you couldn't do this?
Oh, so many times. So many times, or so many people, and that's all, honestly too, you're touching on that confidence issue, right? And in the sales conversation, when customers are like, I need to think about it, what they're really saying is, I don't think you can do what you're telling me you can do.
Yeah.
Like it's not saying they're challenging you, but come on, show your value, have confidence in yourself and your product or service. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I see that. So, and that's the thing, I think, for what would be your message to people, I guess, in this, if they're just starting out, maybe their wins are not as massive as they're maybe a little bit afraid to share their win, or so to speak. Do you get what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, like, some people, their wins today was the fact that they just got up.
And that's the thing though, is I would encourage anybody that's their win to celebrate that win. Because I don't know what's going on in their life. I don't know what's challenges they've had in their past, right? And it would be it's unrealistic to compare somebody that says, hey, me getting up in the morning is a win, to Grant Cardone, who's like, oh, I just made $1 billion or whatever, right?
Right.
Completely unfair and unrealistic. So you should be comparing yourself to yourself, not to somebody else.
Right. I mean, you can look at those different things and say, and what I would say is encourage to ask the question of, where did they come from?
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of people, they get this, they look at only what they see on social, right? They see Instagram, they see Facebook. Of course, the pretty things are going to be put there, right? Yeah. What a lot of times we need to realize is that people had their dark moments. Those people that we see big had their dark moments, and they started with small wins. And what they did is, like what you talked about, those two things, they started taking actions in the direction of the trajectory of where they wanted to go.
That's right.
And like you were talking about, as far as like as an artillery, you guys didn't focus on 10 yards out. You focused on that target that was miles out.
You got to hit that apex, right?
Right.
In order to hit your target, you're looking at the round goes in the air, hits the apex, and then really it just kind of drops and is subject to the winds and the weather as it goes down and hits the target. So many people are focusing on that target, but they're not looking at the trajectory like our friend was saying here in the comments.
Right. I love it, man. I love it. Well, Justin, man, I've enjoyed this conversation because it's a topic, like you and I said, we could talk for hours on sales, on commitment. What would be a big message that you want to give people like right now to take away, apply today?
Don't think about it. Like, don't sit there and ponder and think about, hey, where do I need to go? Where's my targets or my objective way down the road? Focus on today. What can you do? I have 10:46 a.m. Eastern time right now. In the next 14 minutes, can you pick up the phone and call somebody? Can you take one action that you would consider a win for the day? I would say don't think about it. Just do it.
I love it. I love it. It's that simple, right?
Absolutely.
Take that out of the equation. Just pick up the phone and go. Yeah. Do that last file. Do that last email. Get that last, do that one action, and then write it down as a win.
Absolutely.
And then don't add more time. Go do another one.
Well, sooner or later, like you're gonna start winning, right? Like, yeah. Oh, I did it, and guess what? I'm still alive, right? So I can do it again, and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I mean, and what we're talking about a lot of time. I mean, this applies to a lot of areas of life, but where we're probably leaning this topic heavy on is probably business, but it can be applied in a lot of different areas of life. But it's just those successive little actions that keep moving you towards a positive direction of life.
Well, yeah, and quite. I mean, just to connect it to what our topic is today. To me, staying committed is those little actions. Like showing up, right, or picking up the phone. Those little actions, even if it's just one. You say you want to make 300 phone calls today, but you made one. Celebrate the fact that you picked up the phone and made one. It's okay. It's okay to be human and not feel like doing it all day today.
Right. But then don't give yourself the excuse.
Yeah.
Go make, and that's, again, it comes back to, I think too, it's like sometimes the urgency that we have to give ourselves. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we need to create that at times an artificial urgency. Yeah. Just because it's gonna nudge us forward. Sometimes when we started talking about this topic, it's like you don't have anybody but you.
That's right.
Pushing you.
And so
yeah. Well, so it's you got bills to pay, those types of things, but you need to create sometimes that artificial urgency, and what you're doing is you're getting that momentum going, and before you know it, that momentum is you're like looking back, you're like, I had no idea I could go this fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what some folks, they look at the task, the elephant in the room, as they say sometimes, right? And they're like, oh, I don't know about this. And they think about it and think about it. And that's why I say, like, you got to just start doing it, right? First little action, and it's going to lead to others. And Grant talks about, if you're not in the right frame of mind, where you're making calls, but it's just not working out for you, help somebody else. If you can't yourself, like, call a friend, call somebody else. Maybe you can help them somehow, and just get yourself back into the groove of doing things and making it happen.
Right. Call a friend. Say, hey, what's a win, man?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I love it, man. So, hey, definitely, Justin's got a fantastic offer here. If you are not already going to 10X Growth Con in Miami next week, well, the tickets are all sold out. The live tickets, they're all sold out, right? In fact, they're already selling tickets for next year. And I believe you can actually get a hold of Justin here to get your ticket for next year, right?
Not for next year, unfortunately.
Next year, okay. Yeah. Get on his list and he'll get you tickets for next year. But right now, what he's got is a fantastic offer of a virtual ticket. There we go. Thank you, Jesse. Virtual ticket and a free ebook. Start off. The ebook's going to be, how long of a read is it, Justin? Would you say?
It's not very long at all. Some of them are quick reads. A couple of them, you could probably do it in about 5-10 minutes. But I'll tell you what, I would recommend you read through it, just to flip through it and see what's there. But then I recommend you take each page, each one for 1 week and apply it to your situation. See where you're either not doing these things or you're doing these things in your own situation. Then go to the next page for the next week.
Right. So download the ebook, print off 1 page.
Yep.
Fold it up, cross it off, work it.
That's right. Absolutely.
What's the worst that can happen?
Worst going to happen is you're going to learn something and make some money.
A paper cut, right? Maybe a paper cut. So, that's the absolute worst. The absolute, the positive side, all that you're going to gain from that's just tremendous. So again, fantastic offer he's throwing out here. Get your virtual ticket, because if you're not going live and you need to show up virtual, you want to show up virtual, you heard about this event here, Justin's giving you a way to actually do that. And he's giving you also information right now where he can actually help you not only this week, but next week and the week after and the months after, and frankly, the rest of 2021 and the rest of this decade, frankly. It's information that you're going to be able to put to use. So it's just absolutely fantastic. Justin, I truly appreciate you jumping on today. As I said earlier too, thank you for making time out of your day. I appreciate your time is valuable, and I really do appreciate that. So by all means, everyone, come back next. If you're following us on YouTube, if you're following us on Facebook, make sure you follow us there, especially on YouTube, if you don't mind. We got some people that are on my channel right here. Subscribe to my channel. We'll be bringing this back next week as well. Plus, we put out a lot of other content to help you and your business be growth driven, whether it's tips, whether it's little hints, whether it's information. Really, frankly, we want to give you, I always tell my gals, it's like we want to give people the meat of the matter. That way they can actually have something to go with. I don't want to give you, I'm not giving samplers. I don't want to give samplers. I want to give meat.
Yeah,
so,
Joe, you and your people are awesome. You guys are great folks, and you have a great service that you're providing us. It's awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate that, man. I really do appreciate that. That's a testimony right there. So absolutely. I appreciate it very much. Well, hey, join us next week. We're going to have a fantastic episode of Be Growth Driven. It's all coming together. We got some special things we're going to try to put together. And so we definitely appreciate, again, your time, Justin, and the rest of you. Be great, because nothing else pays.
Thanks, Joel.